Hi everyone, good morning. The class today is going to be the last class of the spring season, and then the SCI is taking about a month and a half break. There is going to be a summer season, and God willing, I'm going to be teaching then. The day might be switched to Tuesday mornings at 10, so if anyone, if that doesn't work, I know I already checked with Ralph, Eliza, let me know if that day doesn't work for you. And then maybe we could keep it back at Wednesday. The change of time, it was only today. In general, it's going to be at 10. It's going to be at 10 o'clock on hopefully Tuesdays in the summer. So let me know if that's not good. And Eliza, also a personal thing. I would love to know how to get in touch with you because I emailed you. And I don't know if it goes to your husband. Anyway, Tuesdays at 1 is good. Okay. If you would be okay giving me your phone number, I would love that because sometimes I want to get in touch with you and I have no idea how. So if it is something you want, if not, then that's okay too. So I'm really looking forward to teach today as I do all the time and to continue in the summer. We're going to be doing the same theme, which is places in Israel or people that have to do with the history. For today's class, I decided to go back a little bit to, I think what we've usually been talking about, which is new places in Israel to visit. We stopped for a little when the rackets were going on and spoke about war and Menachem Begin. Now we're going to be talking about new places in Israel. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. A little while ago, there was this fake WhatsApp message being passed around, and this was the message. I got it in two groups. It said Google launched a vote to launch the name Israel or Palestine. Click the link and vote. So this wasn't actually true. Google wasn't launching a vote. But the question that I would then ask is, who cares? What's the difference? It's just a name, Israel, Palestine. Doesn't really make a difference. And I think all of us would say, yes, it really does make a difference if we call the country Israel or Palestine. And that begins to show that names really have an importance. It connotes meaning, a sense of history, identity, and names are extremely important. There is a place in Israel called Qassar Al Yahud. Now, most people have never heard of it. Even people living in Israel have never heard of it, have never been there. Now, here's the confusing thing. The name is Arabic. The advertisements about this place appeal to a Christian audience. I'm going to show you in a minute what the brochure looks like for this place. And it's an extremely Jewish place, but Jews don't even go there. They don't even know where it is. And I think a lot of it has to do with the name, because when you hear a name like this, and I'm going to explain later on what it means, you don't think it has anything to do with you, but it is a very, very Jewish place. And I've been there about 4 times, and I try to go at least once a year. I really love it, and I hope you will too. Our focus questions today are going to be, what can you see at Qassar Al Yahud? How can you visit Yericho? And what grows abundantly in the Jordan Valley? And an additional question is, why visit these places? Where is Qasar Al Yahud? So typing it on Google Maps, and because it's Arabic written in English, there are so many different ways to spell it. Google Maps spells it one way, Wikipedia spells it another, the brochure spells it another, I spelled it another. It's about a 50-minute drive from Jerusalem. It's east of Jerusalem, right above the Dead Sea by the Jordan River. So we always start out of Jerusalem, and then you're there. This is the brochure, the official brochure of the Israel Parks Authority. And you see right underneath is written baptism site. And from a glance at this picture, we see water, and water has to do with baptism in Christianity. We see a priest, we see a dove, tons of people on the other side, and there's a ceremony that's going to be going on. So you look at this and you say, it has nothing to do with me. What do I want to go to a baptism site for? Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of what it looks like, and then I'm going to talk about the Christian significance, because after all, if they're advertising this Christian place, we might as well learn what it is. And when you do visit, you will see tons of Christians there. But first and foremost, let's learn the Jewish meaning of this place. So you walk in, you go down really nice steps. This was newly opened in 2011, renovated. And this is what you see. Okay, so we see the water. Based on these like little buoys here, you can understand that people go in the water. I want you to keep that in mind. And another thing I want to show you is how close Qasar Al Yahud is to Yericho. It's extremely, extremely close. And that is significant for the following reason. If we open up Sefer Yehoshua, Bnei Israel are about to enter Eretz Israel, the first time after 40 years in the desert. And in order to enter, they need to cross the Jordan River. And God tells Yehoshua that when the Kohanim's feet touch into the water is gonna, I'm gonna say split, but it's not exactly split. And we're gonna talk about what happened to it. It's not like Yam Suf that it's split into two. The water is gonna stand up and the Jewish people are gonna be able to cross. And if we look at what I have highlighted in red, it says, V'ha'am aviru neged Yericho. The people passed neged Yericho. And we saw a slide earlier that Qassar Al Yahud is very close to Yericho. So what does this all mean for us? So this is a really great depiction of what it means when the Yarden split. So we have on one side, the water just stood up. And on the other, this water over here is continuing to flow. And if it continues to flow, eventually it'll dry up if it's not getting a feed. And Bnei Israel were able to cross over. So here's another picture. You see on one side, the water is standing, it's being stopped. They're going with the Aaron, Bnei Israel are crossing, and here is dry. Bnei Israel were probably about 2 million people or more, so they didn't really cross in one line like this because it would take forever. It was spread out, a lot of area for them to cross. Now, the crossing of the Jordan River, so we see it in the picture. Here are signs to Qassar Al Yahud, and like we mentioned earlier, baptism say Atara Tevilah. Now, what I would propose to do, and if you're putting the pieces together, is I propose to change the name, because what happened at Qassar Al Yahud, that is the very place where the Jewish people crossed the Jordan River. Now, the Jordan River is really long. It starts, we have it from the Kinneret up north all the way to the Dead Sea. They could cross at any point, but if we open the Pesukim, it gives us names of cities, and it says Neged Yericho. We are near against Yericho. So and there's other reasons we're going to talk about later that the Chachamim are very, very sure, and archaeologists are very sure that the crossing of the Jordan River happened in this place, which is huge. Imagine you could be in such a place that happened. What a formative event in Bnei Israel's history. Imagine you could be where Yam Suf split. So it's a huge miracle. And what I propose to do is change the name, because if you're going to call it Qassar Al Yahud, or the baptism site, a Jewish person's not going to go there and even have a picture of a church over here. So why don't we change the name to Ma'aberot HaYarden? And there are actually people that are actively working on this, changing the name to the crossing of the Jordan, or at least an additional name. If not going to change it, then add this name on, give it its Jewish significance. And when you go to the site, you would not know it has anything to do with the Jewish people, because when you see our Christians, and we're going to talk about now what the Christians, soon what the Christians do there, and it is such a Jewish site. Now, other things other than the Jewish people crossing, when Eliyahu went up to the sky, he crossed the Jordan River. He crossed over there. Another story in Sefer Melachim, there was a general of Aram named Naaman, and he had Sarat, and he dipped in the Jordan River, and his Sarat was clean. There's a lot that happened here. You could open the Tanakh, read tons of stories, and we should know about this. So here we are. Qassar Al Yahud is the place where the Jewish people crossed the Jordan and entered Israel. Now, if you look at the Jordan River today, it looks like you could just kind of hop over. Why do you need this big miracle? How deep is the water even anyway? So there's two things I want to point out about this. One, the Pesukim state that when Bnei Israel were crossing the Jordan was Maleh Kol Gedotav Kol Yemei Katzir. It was at its height. There was tons and tons of water, so you can't just skip over. It was a lot bigger than it is today. So one, the season in which you take a picture of the water makes a big difference, and we're going to see a little bit later on that in certain pictures I have of the site, you could see a lot of steps. In certain you can't, because the steps are covered by water. So the tide is really changing. And another thing, and this is the most significant reason why looking at the Jordan River today, it looks like you just hop over, is that a lot of the water is diverted for farming purposes. It's great clean water, and Israelis wanted to farm. So if you're not going to have the usual flow, it's not going to be that hard to cross. So those are a few reasons why the river today looks kind of small. Here is me and my friend Edith. We are at I should use the new name, right? Ma'aberat HaYarden. And you can see how deep the water is. These are all steps, but you can't even see them. You just know it's there because of the banister. Now, the water doesn't look so clean. It is, well, I'm not gonna say it is clean enough to go swimming in, but it's kind of brown. We're further down the Jordan River, and it just got muddier from everything rushed in. If you would swim up north, more closer to the Kinneret, the water would be a lot cleaner, and we're going to see a little how it's cleaner. And I went with my friend and another family. We went on a tour there. We opened our Tanakh, read the Pesukim, and we really had such a great time. And especially since Jews don't really frequent the site, you feel even prouder. And something Edith actually did for her daughter's bat mitzvah. They reenacted the crossing of the Yarden, and her daughter explained it, and they took the whole family here. Now, Edith lives in a place called Yericho, which is about 15-minute drive away, and her husband had never been here. And her husband is someone that knows Israel, and he said, I can't believe I was never even there, because it's something that it's not so much on the map, but it's getting more and more. Now, something amazing that they have started doing the last few years, I started joining when I heard about it, I think the second year they did it. And you see the sign over here, Ma'aberat HaYarden, in parentheses, Qassar Al Yahud, is on Yud Nisan, the 10th of Nisan, and we're going to see why specifically that date. They do a huge ceremony, and every year, at least every year that I've been going, I've gone for either, I think for 2 years so far, and then the third year I wanted to go was Corona, so they didn't have it, and this past year didn't have it as well. We see already on the sign, the 10th of Nisan, we're going to see in the Pesukim, is the day on which Bnei Yisrael crossed into Eretz Yisrael. A lot of people don't know this date, or if they know the date, they know it is the date Bnei Yisrael were commanded to take a sheep for Korban Pesach, but we actually have written in the Tanakh, Bnei Yisrael crossed the Jordan River on the 10th of Nisan, and this is also something that's known as the National Aliyah Day, which makes sense because they technically made Aliyah. They're all coming into Eretz Yisrael, and they decide what more appropriate day. And it's also crazy to go because it's a few days before Pesach. Everyone's busy cleaning, cooking, and to stop your day and say, I want to acknowledge and celebrate this amazing miracle of the Yarden splitting and coming into Eretz Yisrael. They do this really nice ceremony. So I had the privilege of attending 2 years. Here's me at a later year. You could see my hair changed colors over time. And this is before the ceremony started. Eventually, all the chairs were filled. And here, it's in the midst of the ceremony. So this is Dr. Chagi Ben Artzi. I mentioned him a few weeks ago when I spoke about the Six-Day War. He wrote a book on it. He wrote many other books. I admire him because of his knowledge, and he's also a tour guide, and he's incredible and inspiring person to listen from. A lot of people know him because of who he's related to. Sarah Netanyahu, Bibi's wife, is his sister, so people know him because he's related to a famous person. And here he is talking to the people about the miracle. He's very involved in pushing this and in trying to get the name changed or added, and he has a Tanakh in his hand, reading the relevant Pesukim. Here is the choir. It was so beautiful to be sitting in a place like that and hearing the choir sing gorgeous songs, and it just kept expanding every year. Like I mentioned, the 10th of Nisan, we see in the Pesukim, Be'asod l'chodesh harishon, the first month according to the Torah, or the Tanakh, is Nisan, and that is when Bnei Yisrael crossed, and that was when I was privileged enough to go. And once I decided this was important to me, I used to go home to America for Pesach. Now, I would want to go more than the day before, but once I decided that I am going as long as I can to this ceremony on the 10th of Nisan, I always made sure that my flight was after that. So I really came home close to Pesach, but that was worth it for me. Another reason you should go, other than it being amazing to be where Bnei Yisrael crossed the Yarden, is because you have the opportunity to make a very, very unique beracha that you could only make, I think, about 2 places. The Mishnah lists, or the Gemara lists places that you can make a beracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asa nisim la'avotenu b'makom hazeh, in this place. One of the places that they list is where Bnei Yisrael crossed the Yarden. So you can make this wonderful beracha, and you could say Hashem's name when you are at the crossing of the Yarden. Now, even better, if you go on Yud Nisan, which is the day they crossed, you could say She'asa nisim la'avotenu b'makom hazeh u'bazman hazeh. So it's always amazing to get to say baracha, especially new ones, and especially in Eretz Yisrael. That is something that I'm blessed to say every year. Well, for the 2 years that I went so far to Ma'avirot HaYarden. So that's also a really special aspect. It got really popular to come. This is only one side of the buses. There's this amount of buses parked on the other side of people that are coming to the ceremony. Now, something really special that they do that day as well, which we're going to see, is they go to Yericho. So they have a nice tour of Yericho, and then they finish with the ceremony, and it's people from all over the country. I always make sure I get to be on Chagi's bus. Each bus has a different tour guide, but since I have a relationship with him and I like learning from him, I make sure to go on his bus. Now we are gonna move to what it is advertised as. So Christian baptism site. If you're familiar at all with the New Testament or even with small aspects of it, so you have John the Baptist who baptized Jesus in the Jordan River, and the Christians believe that it happened in this area too, which also makes sense because a lot of the things that they have in their Bible are modeled after things in the Tanakh. And Eliyahu Hanavi, he crossed the Jordan River over there before he went up to the sky, so it makes sense to kind of do it in the same spot. And while we're at it, there's also a dove in this picture, and we saw in the brochure there was a priest with a dove. A lot of times at this baptism site, when they talk about what happened, they associate it with a white dove, and they said right after he was baptized, there was a white dove, which represented the Holy Spirit. So that's what the Christians believe happened at Qassar Al Yahud. So for them, it is an extremely holy site, one of the most special experiences that they could have. And you see here people in the water being baptizing themselves. Now, they've all been baptized already, but it's a renewal, reenactment, something they remember forever. And you notice that they're all wearing white. That's their, most of the people that come and baptize here in the Jordan River wear white. And some of them even have a custom that when they're buried in these clothing that they were baptized in. So here's one picture. Here's another example. And when you go, most people wear bathing suits underneath because it becomes see-through when you get wet. So when you go to Qassar Al Yahud, you most certainly will see people that are baptizing. The Jordan River has two banks to it. We have the side of Israel and the side of Jordan. And you could see here, and I have a clearer picture in the next slide, that you can also go in and baptize from the Jordan side. It's more popular in Israel. I think also because Israel is one of the holiest sites to Christians, the top holy sites in the world. They're holiest, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is in the Old City in Jerusalem. And to get to hit so many sites in one shot, then there's more sites than in Jordan. But I guess if they were in Jordan, they might do the same. It's equal sides of the water. And you already could notice in the background that there is a church. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So here's the Jordan River church. And this picture I just took so you could see that the Jordans also have an option, but ours is way more built up. There are a lot of churches on the banks of the Jordan River because since there were so many pilgrims, they said, let's make it comfortable for the pilgrims. Also, it's a significant site for us. A lot of them you cannot access because there are a lot of mines there. The Israeli government is working very hard to clear the mines, but it's still, you can't just tread wherever you want. And the mines are there from the 67 war. I want to address now the name in Arabic. We said the place is known as Qasar Al Yahud. So Qassar in Arabic means a palace, Al Yahud for the Jews. So this is a fortress over here, which is a church of John the Baptist. And the Arabs look at it and they say it looks like a palace. And in their name, they're actually helping preserve the Jewish tradition of crossing the Yarden there, because they're calling it the palace of the Jews, not the palace of the Christians. So that's where the name Qassar Al Yahud comes from. It's funny how everything's all mixed up. And that's a point I'm going to address a little bit later, all the merging of all the religions. So an Arabic palace of the Jews based on a church that the Christians built. So that's where that name comes from. And how did this all come about that the site became so built up and people are coming all the time? So since the 4th century, pilgrims are coming to the Jordan River to baptize. Okay. But then we have the 6-Day War. And after the 6-Day War, the site became off limits as the Jordan River is the border between Israel and Jordan. And what would happen is there were terrorists that would cross the Jordan River into Israel. Now, if the terrorists are crossing over, we can't exactly have people baptizing the river. And the area became a closed military zone, and nobody could go in and baptize in that area. And then in the 1980s, the Greek patriarch asked Israel to reopen the site to pilgrims. Now, they didn't just ask and say, can you? And Israel said no, and that was it. They begged and pushed and pleaded and come on and please. And I have to say that thanks to the Christians, the site is open and running, and it is what it is. And it would have been beautiful if the reason why this site was open was because there was such a push from the Jewish people to say, hey, this is where we cross the Jordan River. We want to be able to visit the area. But the push didn't come from the Jews. As I said earlier, a lot of Jews don't even know about the site. Now you guys know about it and can go visit and tell other people. And we would like to thank the Christians for pushing Israel to do it, and Israel opened the site. Now, what did Christians do? They came to Israel before that, and I said in 2011, it was finally open and ready for the public to come, and they had to make it really wide because they knew they'd get tons of visitors. So the Christians that came before, what did they used to do? So I'm going to hold that thought in a minute. I wanted to pick up on what I said about how you have so many mergings of the Arabic name and the Christians coming and the Jews hopefully come. In Sefer Yoshua, it says that Hashem told Yoshua to tell Bnei Israel, to tell their children about the miracle of the crossing of the Yarden. And the reason given is, למען דעת כל עמי הארץ את יד אדוני כי חזקה היא. למען יראתם את אדוני אלוהיכם כל הימים. So all the nations of the world see God's hand, how strong it is, so you fear God always. And when I was there on a tour with Chagi Ben Artsy, one of the things he said is he starts reading the Pesukim, and all of a sudden he goes, now I understand this Pasuk. Because you see the Christians, that they're all coming here in droves. And we're coming as the Jewish people. And what's happening right here? The nations are knowing God. Now, granted, they don't exactly have the same God as us, but it is possible that the Christians mention the crossing of the Yarden, and everyone just gathering from different religions in this site, we see the relation in the Pesukim, that everyone is acknowledging what God did here. And at the end of the day, God wants it acknowledged. So that's something that we kind of see hinted to in the Pesukim. So now with all of that, we'll add the name. We won't take off Atara Tavila, but let's add Ma'aberot HaYarden, so we know what it is to the Jewish people as well. And now I'm going to answer the question of what did the people do beforehand. So there's a site up north by the Kinneret, because the Jordan River flows from there, called Yardenit, and you see it's written on the building, welcome to Yardenit, the baptismal site on the Jordan River. Now, this is what Yardenit looks like. We see the water is much clearer, much more beautiful, and look at the structures, stone walls. This is where the Jews were going. This was open in the 1980s, so you had for 30 years Jews. This is where the Christians were going to baptize. Now, a lot of them still use it, but if you could have a closer place, a more authentic place, then why not go there? So Qassar Al Yahud became very popular. Now they have a gift shop and they sell a lot of things connected to the Jordan River. They sell the white robes that people wear that you can purchase there if you didn't already bring your own. Another thing which I get a kick out of, holy water from the Jordan River for $5 a bottle that can be bought as well. Okay, so we answered. That is Qassar Al Yahud. I encourage everyone to go. If you are going towards, if you're going towards the Dead Sea, instead of making a right, you make a left. It's 10 minutes out of the way. It's so worth it to go, and it'll be on your right if you're headed towards the Golan and you're taking Highway 90. So it's a great place to go visit. Now, the next question I want to ask is how you can visit Yericho. Hold on. 1 second. Oh, wait. Okay. I thought I messed something up. Before we answer that question, I want to add something else about a nearby attraction. If you were already going to Ma'aberot HaYarden to see where the Jews crossed the Jordan River, then there's something else you must see. It says in the Pesukim that right after Bnei Israel came into Eretz Yisrael, Hashem told Yoshua to make a Charvot Surim. We're going to talk about what that is, and give Bnei Israel Brit Milah, because the generation that was born in the desert did not have a Brit Milah. And Yoshua did as he was told, and there was a mass Brit Milah, and the place was named Givat Aralot, the mount of the Aralot. Now, what are the needs of a nation where almost the entire nation is doing a Brit Milah? One, you need a lot of water, because if you want to clean the area, if you want to drink, also you need a lot of water anyway. You're a huge people. Being by the Jordan River is pretty convenient. Two, you want to be close to Yericho, because right after Bnei Israel did this, they go and they capture Yericho. So if they're circumcising themselves, they don't want to be miles and miles away. That's a pretty long journey to make. And the third thing is you need a way to do the Brit Milah. Now, they didn't have knives on them, and they didn't have ways. How did they do Brit Milah? If we go back to earlier examples in the Torah, when Sipporah, Moshe's wife, gave her son a Brit Milah, what did she use? We see the name even here in the Pesukim. She used something called an Even Sod, which is a flintstone, which is a very sharp stone. And this is what Bnei Israel used to give a Brit Milah. Now, here's the amazing thing. This hill over here, there's a lot of hills around, is the only one in the area that has these stones. So it is very, very likely that this little hill is the site where Bnei Israel did the Brit Milah, for all the reasons mentioned. Now, Chagi, I was there with him, that's how I know this, and he said he thinks they took the Even Sod with them from the other side and brought it there. But it's just really cool also. You could say, look, I'm standing now at the place where Bnei Israel did a Brit Milah, which is a huge experience for them. Now, how can you visit Yericho? Next question. If we're talking about the Yarden, they're near Yericho, they're going to conquer Yericho. So the answer is you can't, because right in front of Yericho is those familiar big red signs that say that the road leads to Area A, and the entrance is forbidden for Israeli citizens, and it's dangerous. But how did this come about? What's Area A? So in 1993, we had the Oslo Accords, and that's when the area in Judea and Samaria was divided up into different areas. So you have Area A, which people like to say stands for Arabs. That is completely under the Palestinian Authority, which was also created then. The Palestinians didn't have a government before that. And the Israelis have nothing to do there. It's completely ruled, the school, sanitation department, whatever needs to be run by the Arabs. Area B is both, which means it's the Arabs live there, but it's run by the Jews. And Area C, they say, stands for Selano or Shelano, towns such as Efrat, which is all Jewish people. Now, Yericho is Area A, and you see also on the sign how Area A, like they're literally writing Area A. Hebron, for example, most parts of it Area A. Shechem is Area A. You can't go into all the significant Tanakh places. But if you really, really, really want to go to Yericho, here's a picture of me with a sign that I wrote so I could prove where I was. I am standing in Yericho. Now, how did I get into Yericho? I thought you can't go, but I said if you really, really want to go, you can. The only way you could go in is if you have intense security, and all these people that you see behind me, I was on the bus with them. We saw a slide earlier with all the buses of people that were coming to the ceremony on Yud Nisan. There were, I can't even tell you how many soldiers that would go before us, that would go after us, they'd be next to us, all guarding us. And you really need armed guards and the Israeli army to go in with you if you are going to go into Yericho. Now, I'm going to add a small footnote that there are Christians that go to Yericho. Now, they don't have all these armed guards. How can they go in? Because they're not Israeli citizens. So they can go in. Now, is it safe? It's enter your own risk, which means also as American citizens, you could also go in and no one's going to stop you. But like I said, it's enter at your own risk. I know when I was getting my training as a tour guide, they said, what if you have a group that wants to go to Yericho? They said, if I go as an Israeli citizen and I'm also American, but I'm also Israeli, I need to sign a paper that says that if God forbid anything happens to me, I know that the Israeli army will not come and save me. So it's a big deal to go in. I felt really special because they said, hey, I'm in forbidden territory. So I did go to Yericho. I think every Friday there's even organized trips to Yericho. It's not so hard to go in, but you just have to make sure you're with an organized trip. And you see behind me, this is what we had. These are only two examples of the soldiers that are sitting guarding the way. This is Chagi again, he's giving a tour in Yericho. Tel Yericho refers to the ancient Yericho, and I remember getting such a kick out of it. I go, look at all the Arabic and Palestinian flag, because I'm in Area A. This over here, I think is really cool. You could see our shadow. What we are looking at, now I don't know how to point out specifically because I was only there once and it's also kind of mishkababble to me. But Chagi said that we are looking at one of the walls of Yericho. We know that when the Jewish people came to conquer Yericho, there were walls and they surrounded the city 6 times, and the 7th time it fell. And we also know the story of Rachav, who saved the spies, and she had to tie a red string on her window. It said she lived on the wall. And then when the Jewish people came to Yericho, they didn't destroy her house. So Chagi also says that he believes we are looking at remains of Rachav's house, because he goes, this is the only part of the wall that remained, and we know her house remains, so it's what it has to be. Not everyone accepts that, but I think it's fun to believe it, and I like believing it. And this is one of the things that you can see in Yericho. Here's another picture of it from the back. You could get a better view. Yericho is very green, and there's vegetation and palm trees, and here's another view of it. Yericho is an oasis in the desert, and that is very significant because something else that is in Yericho, so you see palm trees. Yericho is called Ir HaTamarim, the city of dates, and there's tons and tons of dates that grow there. It's an ideal area. I'm standing by something known as Armenot HaChashmonaim, the palaces of the Chashmonaim. Later on was rebuilt up again by King Herod. Why did the Chashmonaim want to be in Yericho? Well, if we just said it's an oasis in the desert and there's springs and natural water and you're in the middle of a desert, then it's a great place to set up camp. And also the weather there is really, really nice, because the closer you are to the Dead Sea, the warmer it is, and Yericho it is pretty close. So when Herod wanted to get away, also Masada he had, if you want to get away to a close place that's warm, you go to Yericho. So that's something else. And I also felt so special when I was visiting it, because it's not somewhere you could go every day, and you could look at the unique structure of the wall. Here's an aerial view of what it used to look like, and you can imagine back in the day how beautiful it was. Another thing you can go visit is a shul called Shalom Al Yisrael, and you see the beautiful mosaics. I'm going to zoom in on the mosaics. Something really unique is, look at all these, and I've never seen this other than here. Look at all these hearts that you have around, half red, half blue heart mosaics, which is really pretty. And you have the menorah, which is that was the Jewish symbol of the time. And most shuls that are ancient and have mosaics will have a menorah, and the menorah, which had 3 legs, and you see a shofar and a lulav as well. Other options. Oh, okay. I forgot other options for what. If you are not able to go to Yericho, you do not feel comfortable going to Yericho, some other things you can do is you can go to Mevaot Yericho. Mevaot Yericho is close to Yericho. It's a Jewish town, and I really give a lot of credit to the people that live there, because it is pretty far. From Jerusalem, I'd say it's a good hour drive. Now, if you could cut through Yericho, it would cut the time in half. But it doesn't. And why are the people living there? Because they say Eretz Yisrael belongs to us, and we want to live in significant places. We want to be next to Yericho, the first city that the Bnei Israel conquered. So you could go and visit Mevaot Yericho. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. You can also go to Mitzpah Yericho. Mitzpah Yericho is one of my favorite yishuvim in Israel. I think I would want to live there one day. It's gorgeous. There's great families. My friend Edith that I was pictured with earlier lives in Mitzpah Yericho. Mitzpah Yericho, you hear from the name, it looks out over Yericho. So if you want to get a view of Yericho without going in, or just get inspired by seeing the first city that Bnei Israel conquered, and then being reminded of all the other Tanakh stories that happened in Yericho, Mitzpah Yericho is the place for you. I go pretty often, and always when I look at a Yericho, it brings back so much, and it's very inspiring for me. I almost got married there, but it was closed because of Corona there, event hall. Mitzpah Yericho has about 400 families and growing. It's really a wonderful, wonderful place to go. Here in the far distance, you see Yericho. So you're standing right now on a balcony and you're looking out and you see Yericho. It's a little bit foggy in the picture, but you can usually see much more, also depending on where your angle is. Now, I want to tell a cool story. Answering the question, can you make desert bloom? When any city is being founded in Israel, some of the decisions that are made is how much are we going to leave to gardening and parks, because not everything is going to be built up. And when they were building Mitzpah Yericho, the people on the committee said, let's not even really leave area for gardening because it's a desert. What's going to grow really? And then someone else answered, but you know what? But the Jewish people have a lot of power. So let's allocate area for growth. And that's how skeptical they were that anything would even grow. And you go to Mitzpah Yericho today, and there are tons of trees and fruit trees. Now, I will add that they were all connected to a water source, and they're getting drip irrigation. You can't survive without water. But really, really, the desert bloomed, and the Jewish people were able to come to it and make it bloom. And I have a friend there who has every kind of fruit tree you can imagine. And she said the secret is that you need to water it a lot. But she said, of course, the bigger secret is that it's Eretz Yisrael and God gives berachah to this land. And she was the one that told me the story that they didn't even think it was worth it to invest in gardening because nothing could grow. And indeed, something did grow. Here is a wedding. They have a beautiful chuppah overlooking Yericho. There's another picture, Yericho in the background. And this I just thought was fun to throw in, a new park in Mitzpah Yericho. I always think that groups with kids should go there because imagine how much fun kids would have. Look at those slides. They don't have those kind of things in America, at least none that I've seen. So that's also a fun aspect of Mitzpah Yericho. Israel is very family friendly. There's tons of parks and things for kids. Okay, so we answered what you can see at Qassar Al Yahud. We answered how you can visit Yericho. And now the third question, what grows abundantly in the Jordan Valley? And we already began to answer this question, and the picture is a giveaway. There are tons of date trees that grow in this area. Why? Because in order to grow well, they need two conditions. One, they need a lot of water. And the lucky thing is it can be salty water. It doesn't have to be fresh water. And two, they need heat. Two things which are really abundant in this area. So there's tons and tons and tons of date trees. We also said Yericho is Ira Tamarim, date city. So it makes sense if the Tanakh is calling it that the dates should do well. Now I want to go back to Mevaot Yericho that we spoke about. And I want to say that there's a lot of dates that they sell in Israel, and it's one of the 7 species. The most delicious date I have ever eaten in my life is grown in Mevaot Yericho. Now, it's no secret because it's close to Yericho, and the date is so sweet. First of all, literally, it's zavat chalav udvash. It's dripping from you, hold it. And it's so sweet, you can't eat more than one. So I buy a box and it lasts me the whole year and I don't even like dates, but I like these dates because I can only eat one at a time. And it is, if you like dates or even if you don't like dates, Mevaot Yericho is where you want to get dates from. And when they come out in date season, it is incredible and they freeze really well. And a really cool thing that you could do if you are going to pass Mevaot Yericho, and if you're on your way up north, you will be passing it, is they have this, we'll call it a company called Kesem HaTamar, where it's a couple that they have date trees there, and you could tour among the trees, learn about how they're grown, and then you could do a Silan workshop. Silan is date honey, and how cool that everyone leaves, you make it, and it's really not even hard to make because the dates are so rich and drippy. And everyone leaves with Silan, which is really fun. It's great to use in cooking. I use it all the time. So that's a fun activity you could do as well. So to summarize, we opened up speaking about the importance of names. Yeah, we said Israel, Palestine, does it really make a difference? It does. And if names are really important, then Qassar Al Yahud should be given an additional name. And we said it's a little bit confusing. It's an Arabic name, but they say that it's the baptism site. And we explored what the Jewish connection is, that this is the place where the Jewish people cross the Jordan River, which is huge that we even know where it is. And we saw the proximity to Yericho, which was, you need that in the Pesukim. We're not going to say they crossed all the way up north because that's not near Yericho. They do a ceremony every year on the 10th of Nisan, and I showed you a few pictures from when I visited. You can also visit the mound where Bnei Israel did Brit Milah, Givat Analot. You can visit Yericho and go all the way inside if you are accompanied by the army. Otherwise, you can go to other options that don't go into Yericho. We discussed area A, B, and C. In Yericho, you can see ancient walls, the palaces of the Hashmonaim. You can see beautiful shul. Mevaot Yericho is another option because it's close by and they have fantastic dates. Mitzpah Yericho is my favorite place ever. You can overlook Yericho. And we discussed date trees, how they grow really well in that area. Now, why visit all of these places? So I think if you go to a place that has so many beginnings, this is where the Jews crossed when they were first entering into Eretz Yisrael. This is the first city that they conquered. It brings up those kind of questions in your own life, and the opportunity to get a fresh new start, and you have so much lying ahead and unknown, which is scary in a way, but also beautiful. Every time I look at these cities and I look out at Yericho, which I do quite a lot when I go to Mitzvah Yericho, or if I go to Ma'aberot HaYarden, I really ask myself these things. I say, where in my life do I want a fresh start? Do I have hopes for some new things that I want to do? And then I also ask myself if I'm continuing the path of Bnei Israel. I said, they made Aliyah into Eretz Yisrael. I also made Aliyah. Am I continuing in the way? Am I following the Torah? Am I following the mitzvah? And these are questions I'm not going to say I ask myself every single second of the day, because I don't. And sometimes you do need these places to remind you of these things. And Eretz Yisrael is abundant with places to give you amazing inspiration. Something new that I started doing, it's connected, but not to Yericho. When I take the light rail in Jerusalem, it's right next to my house. When it goes over the Cords Bridge towards the central bus station, my husband pointed this out to me. I'd never even noticed it. You can see Nabi Samuel, which I gave a class on, which is where Shemuel Hanavi prayed to God to answer Bnei Israel's tefillah. It's where Yehuda HaMaccabi prayed to God. There's a lot of tefillah there. And I glanced at it for a second, literally a second. And every single time I look at it, I give a special tefillah to God that connected to these ideas. Every single time. Now, if I wasn't seeing this, I would not take that second to pray to God, and I make it very focused because it's only a second. But Eretz Yisrael is just amazing that way, especially if you know the history, because then you could appreciate it even more. Thank you so much for joining. I am going to miss you all, and I look forward to seeing you again when the SCA starts up the classes again, sometime in July. I don't know the exact date, but follow them for details. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
That was great. That was great. Here.
You're welcome. Are you parked or you're driving?
No, I pulled over.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to see the lights.
Amazing. Okay, great. So I look forward to seeing you again in class in July. But well, I speak to you every Friday, so it's not till then. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to learn about this.
Bye.
Bye.